consistently always a disappointment. Should I have not been talking?
What happened?
YouTube is just always consistently a disappointment. I'm a little bit worried about this because you're sitting on the left.
Oh.
And I'm sitting on the right. Today, on the Blood Feud podcast, Neil and
Sam
are going to be talking about... Oh, and who?
No, I'm
Special
sorry.
guest?
The Witch.
The guest is the witch or the movie's the witch?
Both. The guest.
The who?
The guest.
We're talking about the guest. Or we're talking about the witch.
The witch
who?
is the guest. Oh, which one?
Which.
So you mean which one? Are we talking about the guest or the
witch.
the movie?
The VV-itch?
So which one?
The Gitch.
The VV-itch. Hello, everyone.
We're so glad you could be here with us tonight.
We're glad to be talking about which one?
The witch.
The witch today.
The who?
Jesus Christ.
We're talking about Jesus, our Lord and Savior.
Well,
not no,
it's not coincidental. Lots of people not being saved.
Speaking of, we're talking about the witch, and that just made me think. This movie was endorsed by the Satanist Church.
Oh yeah,
they were like, "A-OK, if you want to learn about our Lord and Savior Satan, go see The Witch," which is pretty metal, and that's a pretty good endorsement. Probably the best endorsement you can get if you're a horror movie.
Yeah, but I feel like, and I don't really have the knowledge, but I don't think Satanists are like supposed to be evil.
No.
In real life, whereas this is some evil shit.
Yeah, that's like the best way to describe this movie. Is it's not even scary. It's like evil.
Just some evil shit going down in Puritan USA.
New England.
In Puritan Duke Nukem USA forever.
God bless America.
So it's The Witch, and we've been really excited about this one since, gosh, I don't know, September.
2007, I think.
Yeah.
Like 9 years ago.
Which was when I was in 7th grade.
Yeah.
So it's been a minute, and I think I'm pretty happy to say that this one lived up to the hype.
I think in a different way than I was suspecting, though.
Yeah, and I think this movie was a really good example of a best case scenario. Well, of a good scenario of, we talked about that movie Goodnight Mommy and how that trailer set up completely false expectations. And I think this movie's trailer didn't set up false expectations, but it was so vague that it could have gone in any direction.
I didn't watch any trailers for this.
I watched a couple, and I think I was a little upset that the trailer gave away like the last scene in the movie, but maybe I shouldn't have even said that. But overall, I think I was happy with this one, and I think I liked this movie a lot. Would you say?
This movie, like, it left me with a weird feeling. Like it's hard to react to. It made me not feel anything, but I mean that in a positive way. It's hard to describe. It's like weightless, but it has weight. And I know this is going to sound like that sounds really bizarre, but I feel like once you see the movie, like I walked out of the theater and I was like, I don't know how to feel about this right now. 'Cause like I said, it really is an evil, sinister film.
Yeah, I was pretty taken aback by how upfront the evil was in the movie, or how evil the film, how much of a focus there was on pure.
It takes itself
evil.
Very seriously.
And what you have to understand about the context of the movie is that, I obviously knew that it was during Puritan America, but it really is so much about Puritanism and the daily lives of people living that religion on the edge of a frontier where the wilderness and the forest and the wood, as they say in the movie, is regarded as a form of evil, as a form of something that can't be tamed, a dangerous entity.
It's very documentary-esque. Like, if it feels like if you were to take a camera crew, send them back to 1600, and
Yeah.
and put him in the life of this Puritan family.
And that was one of the stronger parts of this movie is there's really not a ton of I don't want to say action, but a lot of this movie is just the day-to-day lives
Yeah.
of a family trying to survive after being exiled, and I don't think that's a spoiler. We never find out what they're exiled for.
Well, I mean, yeah,
Um,
it's it's the opening scene of the movie where they're at this plantation, and then the father's kind of it's something about religion.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't feel that they're following the church enough,
Yeah.
and so he's like, "Then will exile me, if you will."
And the beginning is very well done just in that one scene because it kind of starts and you think it's a narration, but it's actually the father talking in front of a
He's
court.
got a really nice voice.
And we'll talk about this. Maybe we won't talk about it more, but that was one of the most striking things about the film was how well cast most of the roles were, but especially the father of the family, whose name
William is the character.
is William. His voice is so gravelly and like that,
Yeah.
you know,
but all the time.
and it's perfect, and it's so unsettling, and that alone sets a great tone
Yeah.
for the movie. So, what else should we say about the film before we get into our usual spoiler section?
So, I think one thing that you need to understand about this movie is apparently the director, Robert Eggers, who's actually directing a remake of Nosferatu, which is pretty exciting. He apparently took a lot of the script, I think it says it at the end, yeah, directly from journals and
Real journals.
real writings from the 1600s about witchcraft.
Which is pretty cool. This movie, on that note, this movie is as much a window into a very specific time in history as it is a horror movie. I'd almost say it's more about the history than it is
It's
about
almost
the
like a
horror.
historical drama,
Yep.
just with like
Yep.
dealing with a very frightening and
Yeah.
evil subject.
It's a very methodical movie. It's a very patient movie, although in some ways it also is very direct. And
Yeah, which I'm glad about
you know,
that.
the one thing I will say about the movie, and I liked it, but I was a little disappointed at maybe how straightforward it was. And I think there's elements that weren't straightforward, and I think there's a lot to be interpreted here, and I think there's a lot of reasons to see this one more than once, especially in theaters. However, I do think it's a pretty linear movie. I don't know if you'd say the same, but it never at any time did I feel like my mind was being blown. You know, I never felt like I was being undermined.
I'd say there was one part towards the end that was kind of shocking
Okay.
or
We
unexpected.
can talk about that.
But I didn't really feel like it was ambiguous. I guess we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, I just I guess I felt like this again. The movie could have gone a lot of different ways, but it's a fairly linear story, and it doesn't really. I don't think it's too surprising the way it ends up, but
No.
I think it's cool.
Yes.
And I think it's such a well produced film, both in the way that the characters are really great. I think it spends a lot of time with the characters, the setting and the set in particular. I know we were talking about this during the film, actually, because we were the only ones in the theater. It was actually pretty funny. I think I had said at one point, like, so I wonder where they filmed this and how much time they took to just build this little plantation. It's not really a plantation.
It's a farm.
A little settlement on the edge of an abyss, you know? And the film does a great job of kind of characterizing the abyss, the wood.
Yeah.
Because
it really
wood
is
feels very much
a
alive
character. Yeah.
and hostile, and the soundtrack, which is just these gyrating strings, these oscillating strings,
And a choir. Very like high pitched and jarring.
yeah. So I don't know what else. All in all, I think I love the film. I think maybe in some ways I was a little underwhelmed. I don't know how you felt. Maybe.
I think this is a movie that I'm gonna have to see again before
Yeah.
I can really figure out what I thought of it.
I did come away from this one in kind of a similar way, although lessened, to when I walked out of Ex Machina, and I just kind of felt this profound emptiness. You know, I think it's not the same because Ex Machina for me is a much more I think there's more depth to Ex Machina, to be completely honest with you, from a story standpoint and from an interpretive standpoint. But I did come away from this one with kind of, like you said, a weird, empty feeling, and that's not really a bad. I think that's what you said. That's not really a bad.
No, it's
oh,
not.
what did?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of that. Who do you think this movie's for? Because I mean, I do before you
That's
answer.
tough.
You know, a lot of people, I've heard so much praise for this film that it's a modern horror classic. It's not only is it a good horror movie, but it's a good movie. And I almost wouldn't even put this with a lot of other horror films because
No.
it's more of a film than a horror film. You
I
know
think
what I mean?
a lot of people are going to be disappointed with this movie.
Yeah.
Because it's not like a Paranormal Activity. I don't even think there's a single, like, what you would consider a jump scare
Yeah.
in the whole movie. Maybe one part.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
So it's very, like, intellectual, slow burn,
Yeah.
kind of creeps along. I feel like if you're interested in the time period or the idea of, like,
Yeah.
real witches and not like Harry Potter stuff, I think it'll be really interesting for you.
And again, and I don't want to talk about this too much, but it's so steeped in the Puritan American idea of just hostility everywhere. And if you look at classic, Fear of the Dark, the reason, the reason that people became scared of the dark is because there was never a way to light up the darkness, especially before electricity. But when you have, this goes back thousands of years. That's why fear of the dark exists. You can't conquer it. You can't light it up enough. So, in a setting like this, where you're on the edge of civilization, not only on the outskirts of the woods, the forest, which is already in Puritanism a symbol of evil, a symbol of mysticism, bad. They don't like you going in there. You've got this impenetrable darkness that is kind of keeping you reined in as a civilization. So, and these are just the things I was thinking about as I was watching the movie. And if you're into that kind of thing, especially a movie that takes a lot of time to establish a very hostile setting and a very just unnerving setting, then this is the movie for you.
Yeah.
And that's about it. Would you recommend this one?
I'm going to.
Or who would you recommend it to? I guess I
think if, like I said, if it's something that you feel like you'll be interested in, I think you should go see it. If you're just looking for like a scary movie, I think you should probably wait for DVD.
Yeah, because I can see I can see somebody that's looking to go, oh, let's go see a horror movie, and coming out of this one saying, well, that was stupid.
Yeah,
like that's unfortunate because I think this movie does a lot of things right, but
yeah,
I think that's just how it's going to be.
I think we should get into the spoilers because I feel like there's a lot to talk about.
I would recommend this one.
Yeah,
I will say
go see it.
And I'm going to see it again, to be honest, because I think,
yeah,
like we both said, I think it warrants being seen twice.
Yes.
Go watch it. We're gonna talk. We're gonna talk business now.
Business.
Yeah. So we've already talked about the first scene.
Yes.
Which I thought was cool because it kind of, you think it's a narration going on, but it's not. It's actually a diegetic. It's the scene.
He's pleading his case.
Yeah, in front of the court. You never find out why he's exiled. Like it's definitely for a religious purpose.
I think it is because of his religion, because that kind of comes back into play.
Mm-hmm.
Because. Especially for this time period, the idea of like a Puritan family and that not being an ideal anymore, like that it seems like that plantation that they were living on is kind of starting to stray from their Puritan ways, and William is very much internalized in that. So I feel like he almost removes himself. He doesn't seem to be upset about the fact that he's being exiled. Mm-hmm. So
his wife is, though. She doesn't have as much faith in
Catherine,
in the fact that they're leaving the plantation. And a lot of this film is about the familial tension, the family tension that is going to unfold and actually tear the family apart by the end. So, and you kind of get a cool shot of them all leaving on a wagon that's very loaded up, and I thought that was very well done, leaving the
I
plantation.
do want to say one thing before we get too far is the colors in this movie, or lack of color. It's very like it almost looks like a powder of dust or something is like covering everything. It's very cold.
And there's only one real color
in
the film, which is red.
Yeah.
Which is not, obviously, it's an age-old movie trope, but it's used to good effect. Well. Here, it's the only color in the film, really, honestly. The brightest thing in the film.
Yeah, no, it's pretty much white, gray, brown, beige. Yeah. A little bit of green in the woods, but not. It's pretty the woods are like dead, dying, fall.
Yeah, everything feels dead in the film.
Yes.
Yeah, which is cool. So they end up, kind of all finding a spot. The father finds a spot to build their settlement, and they do so. And throughout this these couple shots, you're getting this crazy orchestral, I don't know, like climaxes, and they're so.
Yeah, the film a couple of times does this really, I don't know if unique is the right word, but something that I wasn't used to seeing, where it cuts to black a lot, almost like chapters, kind of.
At the end of like a climax.
Yeah, which was cool, and it's used to very good effect at the end of the film, which we'll talk about.
And I think maybe there were a couple times when I thought I loved the score, but maybe it's a little much. I don't know. I liked it, and I don't personally have that opinion, but it's very like overbearing, and it comes very quickly, and it almost there were times when I wanted to laugh as much as I thought it was cool, but it was very cool. So
yeah, I know, I had no problems with it.
Yeah, so then the rest of the film takes place on their plantation, which is again very dilapidated looking, but very very primitive looking, but rustic. I'm not gonna not those words, but rustic.
Yeah, authentic.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. The whole film feels very authentic, and a lot of care, and it was put into the dialogue, especially, I think. And I can't emulate it, but
no, don't even try.
Just thanks for the vote of confidence. No, but I don't know. You can just tell a lot of care was put into that. Yeah, and the next kind of the witch comes very quickly.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a flash forward. Yeah, a couple months, because they have another son, and then
a new baby named Samuel.
Their corn is planted, their crops are planted. And but they're dying. All the corn is dying. Yeah. And I guess the first thing that kind of sets stuff into motion is when Thomasin. Did we talk about her, the oldest daughter?
Thomasin is the oldest daughter. The girl on the main character girl.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. If you've seen the trailer, this is the part from the trailer where she's playing peekaboo with the baby. That was
in the trailer?
Yeah.
That's kind of messed up.
That was in the trailer. I'm trying to think of what else was in the trailer. Yeah, there was, unfortunately, the trailer gave some scenes away.
Just with the way that scene is set up, it's coming. You know that baby, something's going to happen to the baby.
So you didn't know?
I hadn't seen any of the trailers.
Oh, that's cool. I wish I would have gone in like that.
But just by the way that it was shot, how it was like a point of view of the baby and then a point of view of Thomasin, and then it did that back and forth, and then there was an extended scene shot of Thomasin covering her face, and you just know that something bad's gonna happen to that baby, especially because of the way that the film characterizes the woods up until that point. Thomasin and Samuel are out by the woods, and I thought this was one of the I don't know, most creepiest part of the film. When the baby's gone,
but it didn't go at all where I thought it was going to go, because it gets in your face real quick.
Yeah, see, like I thought that they would have handled it. Baby goes missing, and then you spend a good portion of the movie trying to find the baby. No, because I like that as soon as the baby's missing, Thomasin looks up and she sees something running through the woods right away. You know what I mean? Like it.
Does she see it?
Well, she doesn't. She sees like the branches and the stuff moving,
and then
like
we see it,
and then there's a camera in the woods.
And I want to give the film a lot of credit here because the film could have done this thing where for most of the film nothing happens, and then at the end of the film something kind of happens, but we immediately get introduced to the witch,
the VV itch,
and
actually, do you know why they stylized it VV?
No.
I guess in the 1600s. They didn't use W's. They just did 2 V's.
Interesting.
So,
it's interesting that it's not a double V.
Yeah, it's a W.
I wonder why. Anyway, and so she won't go in the woods because Thomason has been told not to go in the woods, I think, because she doesn't go. She doesn't chase after this baby.
Yeah.
But we do see, kind of confusing, we see a red cloaked figure running through the woods with the baby.
Super creepy.
Yeah, I thought it was Thomason for a second, but it's not. And the way that is edited is weird because you think she has ran in after the baby, so there's a moment where, for me, I was like, is that Thomason or is that someone else? And it's the witch going back to her witch place.
And then it gets brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal right off the bat. That sequence where she presumably cuts up the baby.
Right. There's a shot where you've got the baby and you can see a naked person creeping up on the baby and put a knife to the baby's chest, gut, stomach. Then cuts to a very grisly naked old woman shot from behind, and she's mashing it up with a sound that is, the sound comes back, and the sound of this thing, I don't know.
It's almost like
what you'd like churn butter in, but like not the sound, but like she's mashing this baby up in like a butter churner type thing, like a.
And so you know what? I went and did not a lot of reading, but I did some reading on this movie afterwards, and apparently, witches, according to the lore, in order to get their broomsticks to fly, they would need the blood of a pure soul. So that is authentic, presumably, that they would steal children, mash them up, and then rub their blood, because that's what she's doing in the next scene. She's rubbing the blood on a stick. On
her body and also on a stick. And that's really cool. See, and there's a lot of stuff like that. I'm glad you did that reading, because if I knew more about the folklore, I probably would have
I feel like if
decode the movie more.
If there's anyone that is really into the folklore, I feel like this movie went out of its way to make sure it was really authentic to that, based on what I've read. So,
and that's that, and then we get this really creepy shot of, I think it's a raven in the moon, or is it?
Yeah, it's a raven sitting on a branch from behind in the mood. In the mood.
Anyway, and again, those crazy climactic strings. You know what? Honestly, Neil, I don't know. I have to see that again. What if it was the witch flying?
It could have been,
because it looked like there was something.
I
don't know.
I think but if you think about the raven comes back into play later.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I wonder, is there anything about witches turning into ravens?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because later anyway, okay. Well, so the point is, that's the scene, and it's in your face, and it's crazy that you immediately know what happens to this baby, and it's a strange choice to make on the part of the movie, and it's cool because I don't think movies do that. And then you go back to the plantation, and
Catherine is grieving and praying.
Yep.
And then I guess really the next set piece is when Caleb goes out hunting with William.
With his father.
Because William decides that he needs to hunt because
they can't grow.
Their crops aren't growing.
Now, he has to keep this a secret from his wife because Catherine doesn't want them in the woods.
And also, he traded her silver cup for hunting equipment.
Yes, which you find out. And I just want to say, from the start, the whole idea of Puritanism, if you don't know, is that your fate is predetermined, and you can't change if you're damned, you're damned, and if you're going to heaven, you're going to heaven. You can't change that, but you don't know. So as a Puritan, you spend your whole life being pious with the hopes, trying to kind of find out cues that you are in fact saved rather than damned, but you are predetermined. So the interesting thing about this family is that throughout the movie, we kind of see more and more that they are sinners. They lie. They kind of are doing impure
Yeah.
thing's. They're going
Yeah.
into the woods. They're,
They have impure thoughts
So
that we see.
right. Thomason, one of the first scenes is her praying that she's sinned.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the idea of being a Puritan is you're already predetermined, but you can't ever know what your fate is. So you kind of just have to try to hope and figure out, and you live your whole life in kind of like fear. However, it's fitting. Their end is fitting because they kind of, from a Puritan standpoint, because throughout the whole film they become more sinful.
Yeah.
And it starts with this idea of he's lying, he's going into the woods,
Which is cool because
Yeah.
I feel like maybe the witch is manipulating that.
Yes, yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
Or
And the
a
wood
different
itself,
character
yeah,
is manipulating that.
right.
I guess
Yeah.
Black Phillip.
Black Phillip. We'll talk about Black Phillip because, and that comes in. I think that comes in very quickly. What did we just talk? Okay,
So they go hunting. They see a rabbit, and the rabbit's very creepy looking.
Yeah.
And it throughout the film it reappears, and it's always kind of impervious to being affected by anything.
Yeah,
The
William
dog,
tries
the
to
gun.
Yeah, William tries to shoot the rabbit and ends up getting gunpowder in his eye, and it backfires. And we'll talk about maybe some different interpretations of what the animals could be because there's the rabbit, there's Black Phillip, and I think they both I think symbolize different things. Maybe you could interpret them as symbolizing different things. So they get back to the farm, and this is I think when Black Phillip is introduced.
Yeah, which I was a little disappointed with how this was handled because it's kind of unclear as to if this black goat was with them the whole time, if it just kind of ran up.
But I don't think it was because when they left the town, they did not have this black goat.
Right.
And there's a point where the children, the two littler children, I don't know, I'm gonna find their names.
Mercy and Jonas.
Mercy and Jonas, who are pretty young.
Yeah, so kudos to the two child actors that played Mercy
and Caleb
and Jonas
too. Caleb.
Kudos to the cast.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's this black goat that wasn't with them, and the father. It's kind of the children are playing with it, and the father wrestles it into the pen.
Right. It seemed weird because Mercy and Jonas are have a little sing song thing that they're doing with it, and
yeah,
it seemed like it was around.
Right.
Maybe they didn't have it when they left. Maybe it shows up sometime.
I gotta watch it again. I gotta watch the movie again.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff like that, guys. But now. So Black Phillip we'll talk about. Black Phillip plays an integral role. If you've seen the poster, Black Phillip is on the poster for the movie. He's the goat on the poster.
Speaking of Black Phillip, before we get too far, Black Phillip, I read wasn't intentionally named Black Phillip, but if you say it and you listen hard enough, Black Phillip, Baphomet, they kind of have a...
yeah, okay.
They sound the same, I guess.
Right, we'll come back to Black Phillip. Black Phillip's cool. What's next? And again, it's ridiculous because we saw this yesterday, and I'm having trouble.
Well, it's the events of the film almost it kind of floats along. Like I said, it's very weightless, but at the same time, very heavy.
And no, so here's what happens. They get back, and once the goat comes in somewhere around there, and Caleb lies about where they have been to their mother because she's like, "Where have you been?" And he's like, "We were in the valley picking apples." That comes back. He's a liar. His lie comes back. You remember?
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
The next scene is when at night they overhear, they being Thomason and Caleb overhear their parents talking about not selling, but giving Thomason
family,
marrying her.
Yeah, she's
off.
coming of age, and this is a coming of age story too, by the way.
Yeah,
both for Thomason.
Speaking of going back to the sins, I just wanted to elaborate because I said we see a lot of sinful thoughts that they're having.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of shots where Caleb is noticing Thomason's
her breasts, yeah. And he's
yeah.
starting to be curious about that. That goes with there's a sin for that too. I'm sure I can't, but
I mean, yeah, it seems like
in the scene where I
sister.
think it's after this where they're this is a weird scene. They're beside this river It is. It's right after this. This is the next scene. And Thomason's washing her father's clothes. Caleb is there kind of checking his sister out, and he's kind of embarrassed about that. And then Mercy shows up pretending to be a witch with a stick between her legs, saying, "I'm the witch of the wood."
Mm-hmm.
And then Thomason quickly turns this around in a way that's actually a little bit more convincing than I think
it kind of
was normal.
It puts that's kind of the whole thing with the movie is one of the members of the family
a witch. And that's what you kind of spend the whole movie trying to figure out. What is the witch? Is one of the family members a witch, and who is it? And I don't know. I think the movie kind of turns that idea on its head too.
I definitely think that by the end of it, it's pretty apparent that none of them were the witch, even though and like again, I know we said spoilers, but if this is going to be the end of the movie, jumping ahead, Thomason eventually does become a witch, but I don't think it's because she was inherently a witch. I think it was because of the events that Black Phillip is manipulating.
Now, let me counter that point, because this is interesting. If you look at Puritanism and predestination, perhaps she was always destined to become a witch.
There you go, yeah.
And that could be why the movie is. You could maybe forgive it for being so linear the way it ends up, because they were all kind of predetermined to be sinners, to be damned, to...
You know what? One of my favorite lines along that train of thought is William... It's when they first start like thinking like, you know, Thomason's a witch. And he goes, "I didn't raise my daughter to be no witch," or something like that. I thought that was really cool.
Another interesting part that we'll talk about is, with the idea of predestination in mind, when Caleb, and I'm sorry to spoil this, but when Caleb ends up dying, he apparently sees God and goes to him, and he might be saved. Maybe he's saved. It's hard. Maybe he was meant to be saved. Despite being sinful, despite lying, maybe he was saved. Now, let's pick up back where we were, because Thomason in this scene pretends that she is actually the Witch of the Wood and really freaks her sister out. But it's really unnerving and convincing, and maybe there you can look at that scene as seeing her true fate, her true destiny. Maybe if you're reaching for it, if you're going to look at this from a standpoint that she was always destined to become this witch, because it's a little too convincing.
Yeah,
and
it definitely makes you think like, well, she's the witch. Like,
yeah. But I think that's just a way you could like think about it. I don't think that's what the director intended, and I don't know.
And maybe it's just a really good performance by the actress.
Now, Thomason has done some bad shit here, so she's like, "Don't tell mother, don't tell father."
Well, when she says that, she threatens it. Don't tell them, or I will.
You're right.
Do a witch thing. I forget what she says.
I'll do a witch thing on you.
Yeah. I'll cast a spell on you, feller.
Now, another thing that's happening as all this is going on, there's a recurring scene where William, the father, is chopping wood on a block.
Yeah.
Very ominously. This happens 3 or 4 times. It kind of happens after high tension, after some tension.
And you know what? I started thinking about it. I feel like the camera gets closer to him every time he's doing it.
Yeah.
Again, I'd have to watch it again, but
this is one of the coolest things about the film, and I don't want to talk about it yet. But one of the more subtle things. Keep in mind that they call the woods the wood.
I think me and you picked up on it immediately in the theater.
Yeah. But we'll talk about that because it comes in at the end. So he's chopping wood throughout the film. Very curious. It's a very curious scene, stacking more and more wood up by the fire, by the house. So now that Thomason knows she's going to be sold, or not sold, given away, married off, whatever, she's kind of not happy about that. And this is when her brother Caleb hatches a plan to go check the traps. He doesn't hatch a plan, but he goes to check the traps. He says, if I come back, I didn't really understand the logic, but if I come back with what I want to come back with, you won't be given away.
I think because I think the implication is that Thomason would need to be given married off so that they could receive, is it a dowry? Is that when?
I'm not sure if that was a thing for the.
No, but like a form of that where maybe, in marrying her off, they would receive something back.
Yeah, or maybe they just one less mouth to feed, because they were having a lot of trouble surviving and finding food. So at first, it's not apparent where he's going, or she doesn't know, but she says she forces him to let her come with him. So together, her riding a horse and him kind of leading the horse, they go into the
wood.
They go into the wood to check the traps.
Yeah, and when they're out there, they see the rabbit.
Yep, that's right. And they become separated.
Because the dog chases the rabbit.
Right, the kid chases the dog.
Caleb chases the dog.
And the horse throws.
And the rabbit freaks the horse out.
Yeah, and the horse throws Thomason off of it.
Yes.
Fade to black, cut to black, not like the Metallica song.
Or maybe it's exactly like the Metallica song.
I don't remember.
What if this whole movie is just an interpretation of Metallica's discography?
I'm surprised they didn't get Metallica to just score it. I think that would have been better.
I'm surprised they didn't get James Hetfield to play Thomason.
Yeah, I guess that's one thing I'll never understand about this film, to be honest.
Yeah.
Anyway,
0 out of 10.
So now they're separated. And what I was gonna say something and I totally forgot, but it does. Oh, there was food in the traps. There was animals in the traps. So,
yeah. It was.
They don't ever end up getting it.
I forget what it was. It doesn't.
They're fated to not get that food. And the kid, this is when somebody brought up like a kind of, is this gonna be like Hansel and Gretel? And it kind of is for a second. He gets lost. Thomason wanders back to the plantation.
Well, because
their father
William goes out looking.
Yeah, they realize that they're missing. So did I say Catherine Thomason finds her way back to the farm? But Caleb doesn't. He ventures deeper into the woods and stumbles upon.
First he stumbles upon the dead dog.
Oh yeah,
and it's all
like
disemboweled and
pretty cool. Then further in, he stumbles at near nightfall. He stumbles upon the witch's cabin. And I just want to give props to wherever this was filmed. The forest is so creepy, man. Was it?
Yeah, I looked it up.
Really? It's such a it's so skeletal.
Yes.
It's such a skeletal, dead environment. The trees are just like gangly fingers and just super straight up. It's great. It's so good. It's so important. The setting is so important. Okay, so and this is a cool scene, right? I mean,
yeah, this was actually, again, one of the... Because there's like 3 or 4 like creepy like scenes. I mean, the whole film... You
got to take a minute.
The whole film is like... Got this sense of dread and foreboding through it. But it's really enhanced by like... the baby scene, this scene, the scene in the forest.
The strings.
And the
soundtrack,
yeah.
the choir,
the ending.
I thought this was cool.
But yeah, so just when he's walking up to the house, and I think it's a point of view shot.
It's a first person shot,
zooming up to the house slowly, and then you just see a foot step out the door, and like that, I was like, oh, like
now. Can I say that this was in the trailer too?
Oh, come on!
It didn't show the witch. It just showed the leg stepping out.
Still, that's
I know. I was
unfortunate.
Disappointed, but I thought it was going to be an old witch, and it was not. And
right.
I wasn't completely surprised. But
I think it's one and the same though.
No, it was a ruse.
Yeah.
And this is a cool scene. This is, again, characteristic of the folklore where the witches disguise themselves as attractive young women to lure in young men, like a siren. And that's what she does. She looks very attractive. And because Caleb is becoming, he focuses on her breasts, which are much bigger than his sister's. Sorry, Thomason. I don't...
Maybe one day.
She's... Whatever. So... Because he has been developing a sexual interest, intrigue, this makes sense.
It's almost like the witch knew.
Yeah, so she knew how to get him, and I thought that was tied together well. It wasn't the deepest thing, but whatever, it makes sense. And he is lured in, and they start making out real hot like.
And then her hand comes around,
grabs his head, and it's an
you know
old
what?
hand.
It's
old
very similar,
hand.
and I probably only think of this because I just watched it, The Shining.
Yes,
the scene when Jack Nicholson
scene.
Goes into the bathroom,
Yeah, but she is young looking, but the hand that grabs the back of his head is old and gnarled. Really cool. Cut to black. and I take the Unforgiven.
Take the Unforgiven. Oh.
Exit light. Enter night. So I thought he was gone. Again, the film it would have been predictable if he would not reappear, but he does reappear.
Yeah,
in a bit.
Yeah, because the twins start to say that Thomason did it.
Yeah, so I think this is when. Well, no, this is not yet when.
Oh no, you're right.
Because
Caleb
back
comes
is
back.
when the whole witch talk starts going about. I don't really know. I forget exactly what happens next after Caleb goes missing.
He talks about William?
No, this is when I think the father is forced to tell the mother that, one, he has sold her cup, and two, that they've been going into the woods to trap animals. I forget exactly.
Well, because I think he feels bad for Thomason because she's like, Catherine thinks it's Thomason did something to the cup.
Yeah, and then he's like, "Yo, I sold it."
Which I feel like there has to be some type of meaning behind the cup.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe on a second watch.
It's a wine chalice.
Yeah.
And you receive, I don't know if Puritanism, you receive the blood of Christ in a wine chalice, but
I would not know.
In Catholicism and Christianity,
right.
You receive the blood of Christ, and the chalice was missing. I think that's a stretch. I don't know. If you know, let us know. So Caleb returns, though, naked, in the rain, in bad shape.
Yeah.
And, he's taken to the attic, and they kind of are trying to nurse him. And I was thinking about the fact that he was in the attic, being that they were trying to put him closer to God in a Puritan sense.
And you know what? This was also one of my favorite shots in the film.
I know the light
coming
through the window.
That was cool. But no, this is when... So Caleb is in a little bed in the attic, and William walks in. And I don't know why I liked it so much, because it's really simple, but like the wall behind him is white, like this really white wall, and he kind of walks into the center of it.
It's very weird,
and he kind of like walks back and forth, but he never leaves it in that shot. I don't know. It just stood out to me.
That scene also stood out to me because I felt like something was almost going to happen in that scene, and nothing did. Yeah, and
something witchy.
The whole room is empty. It's just a profoundly empty room. I don't know if that means... I think stylistically it's a very interesting design of that attic. Yeah. The other thing about this is that where Caleb is laying, there's a beam of light coming through the window, shining down upon him. Mm-hmm. Another cue to me that his fate might be that he is saved from the start, from a predestination standpoint. I don't know if that literally has anything to do with the movie, but it just is interesting to think about. I just wondered why they had put him. He was literally in like this holy ray of light.
His performance in this scene,
it's phenomenal.
Yeah,
because he starts to. There's a point where the mother is trying to nurse him. The father is there. Thomason comes. The children are there, and
they find that there's something in his mouth. He can't open his mouth.
Yeah.
And he ends up like
he's like screaming these weird gibberish things that I thought were like satanic, but I can't be for sure. And the father, I don't know what he does with the knife, but he takes this knife and sticks it in the kid's mouth. I don't know what was happening there.
Yeah, that was really weird.
I don't know what that was, but an apple pops out of his mouth. Mm-hmm. He lied.
And it looks like a rotten apple, too.
Yeah, and he lied about the apples, going to the valley to pick apples, so his lie, his sin.
And you know what it also made me think of was Snow White poison his apple.
Yeah, and a witch's cauldron, like bobbing for apples. I don't know how old of a thing that is, but
apples must be a thing in witchcraft. We'll have to look into that.
So they're trying to pray for Caleb as he's in pain, dying essentially. The children, Mercy and Jonas, have forgotten their prayers. They've been hanging out with
Black Phillip.
Phillip, let's remember, who but the children are also now saying, Thomason's a witch. She's cursed. She did this to her brother, and because of what Thomason had said, played the joke on Mercy, and on top of that, the children have forgotten their prayers, and the father is like not amused. He's like, "Yo, if you're a witch, like I'm not about this. Are you a witch?" She says, "No, I'm not a witch."
I ain't raised no witch.
But yeah, and this is when it starts going downhill because they're trying to pray. The children are going crazy, saying these crazy gibberish. It sounds like satanic things, but I can't be sure. And it sounds like Caleb at first is saying satanic things about being bathed in blood.
Yeah.
But then, as he gives a very stunning last breath performance, as he rises up, his arms spread like a cross, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Then he just says, "My Lord Jesus," something about seeing Jesus and
Yeah.
seeing God. He says, "Take me, I'm bathed in your light," something like that. That's not what he says. It's very similar.
See, I was expecting at the end of this rant maybe like him to twist it almost
In a satanic way.
Yeah, but he never does.
And it's curious. Is he saved? We'll never know. We don't really know.
I think so.
But I think so, especially with all those
the light
cues.
and
And
even him, I mean, he's very pale, pure looking.
Yeah. What was the first cue? There was the light. I talked about it earlier. We talked about it.
Okay, well, what happens with Caleb? He questions.
He's checking out his sister.
He questions Samuel's fate. Is he going to heaven? Is he going to hell? Was he born a sinner?
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that. But
No, it's not really
he is
important.
the one that questions Samuel's fate. The dad thinks he's in hell.
No, he thinks he's in heaven. I thought.
No,
he says
the mother thinks he's in hell too.
Yeah. Well, I feel like he says to Caleb that he's in, that it's up to God to decide.
Maybe,
and then he's talking to the mom, and he's like, "Oh, he's in hell for sure."
Oh, I was just talking about the fact that Caleb apparently sees God. At this part, I was referencing this future part.
Oh,
I wasn't talking about something earlier that happened. So he could have been saved from the start, and I think that is the case because this movie is so steeped in Puritanism. I think you have to get in that mode. I think you have to put yourself, because for these, that's what's real in this movie. So he's dead, and all hell is breaking loose in the family because now the father and mother are convinced that Thomason is a witch.
Well, they don't know because.
But the kids are also being super strange.
Yeah, so he locks them all up
in the Black
goat.
Phillip's lair,
the
goat shed, which is kind of crazy.
And then he chops wood again.
In this Amityville horror style, the wood chopping is similar too. It has nothing to do with that. It just reminded me of the father like going nuts, and I was like, is the father corrupted? And I think in a sense they all are at this point. They're all
for sure. Yeah.
They're all tainted. They're all doomed. And I forget what happens at this point. The children are locked up in this shed with the goat, who they now believe is Lucifer. The children think that Black Phillip is Lucifer. Or I think that Thomason tries to say that the other, Mercy and Jonas are the witches, are the demons, and that they've been consorting with Black Phillip, who is the embodiment of Lucifer. Thomason says. So William the father says, "You know what? Screw it. You're all getting locked in this shed."
Right.
You know what I mean? And this is kind of the final movement of the film here. Now, what I need to let me pull up let me see if the site can tell me what happens next.
This is when they fall asleep and they wake up because they hear something walking around the shed.
Yeah.
Oh, and this is the other creepy part.
Oh,
William confesses. So while he's chopping wood, he stops and he says, he's speaking to God, and he says, "This is all my fault. I was a sinner. I was prideful." And he says something like, punish me, but not my children, or something along those lines.
Right. And this is what happens. He is outside. He is sleeping, and he comes in, but they go to sleep. Catherine awakes, and
they hear something on the roof.
They hear something on the roof and outside, and then somebody speaks to her, and Caleb is sitting in a chair next to the bed with Samuel the baby wrapped in a red cloak, and in a very demonic whisper, Caleb begins talking to her, saying, "I brought a book for you to sign." The mother begins breastfeeding the baby, which can't be good. And the book was mentioned earlier. Just this is another element of the folklore. The devil has a book, right?
And you sign your name in the book. Yeah,
I was a little disappointed with how upfront this was. Obviously they're sticking to the lore, and in that sense, it's very authentic. But I've seen that a lot before.
Yeah,
nothing new there, but it's okay. And then it goes. This is one of the most. It's a little wacky, but it cuts to the stable where the children are looking at something feeding on the white goat. I just want to say there's the white goat and the black goat.
Yep.
There's good and evil. And the naked, gnarled, gross ass witch you can see bent over, sucking on probably maybe drinking the blood from the tit of the goat because earlier. The land and the animals, much like the movie we did, We Are Still Here. The land is cursed, just a little parallel there. But and the witch is sucking on the goat, looks gross, and the witch, as it zooms in, turns around and does kind of a
jump scare,
kind of a hilarious cackle. It's a little bit goofy, but the cackle
and the editing too.
Yeah,
it immediately cuts to Thomason's face.
No. The mother.
I thought it cut to Thomason.
No, it goes from the witch to the mother sitting in the chair. Catherine? Is it Catherine?
Yeah, I thought it was witch, Thomason, Catherine.
I'll have to watch it again.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch the movie again.
Because I thought it was interesting that they went from the witch to Thomason. Like, it was Thomason reacting to the witch, but it was still...
Okay,
like, their faces look like they're in the same place.
When I watch it again, I will know, but it goes... So, potentially it goes from the witch to Thomason. The witch goes like...
Yeah.
A little goofy, but then it goes to Thomason and then to the mother.
Or maybe it's Thomason witch.
I think so, because as soon as the witch cackles, it graphic matches to the mother cackling in her chair, rocking without the baby or Caleb, with a crow which is the thing that is pecking at her breast, and then she has blood on her shirt the next morning, and this is it. The father goes out in the morning to find the shed has been broken into. The two children are gone. A little bit dissatisfying. We actually never find out what happens to Mercy and Jonas. But there's
a theory.
We do. I'll get to it in a minute.
Yeah.
Because the sound comes back from the beginning. So the goats are dead, but Black Phillip is not there. The goat is dead, the white goat. Thomason is laying, obviously she looks like the one that has done it, and the father's like, yo, what up? And immediately, though, he's taken out.
By
Black Phillip. Black Phillip rams him with his horns.
Gores him.
Impales him.
Stabs him.
Once, and then again.
And the second time,
he
pushes him.
Pushes him with the horns, impales him again into the giant pile of wood.
Mm-hmm.
That he had been chopping the entire movie. And this is when I kind of realized that the movie was doing a really cool thing with the wood. Mm-hmm. With the father, William, chopping the wood the whole movie, adding to his pile, but also trying the act of trying to conquer the wood, right?
Right. Because he says...
waging war on the wood.
Yeah.
On the wood. And you have to understand, they're calling the forest the wood. There's evil in the wood, is what they say. But he is collecting more and more of the wood, and you can almost see the progression as more and more of the wood, as he chops more and more of it and adds to the family stockpile, they become more corrupted.
Right.
The forest corrupts them, and in his effort to conquer the forest, it literally buries him because he is now pushed under this giant pile of wood, and it falls on him.
Mm-hmm.
So really cool. It was the moment like that when I was like, this is pretty cool stuff going on in the film, and maybe you would interpret that different. Maybe there's a different way to interpret that, but I think
that's pretty much.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
and
then Catherine runs out and attacks Thomason.
Yeah, and Catherine in this scene her hair is down for the very first time. You don't do that as a Puritan. I don't think. You wear it in a bonnet. You wear it very neatly kept. Her hair's down. She's looking wild, like a witch. She doesn't have her outer dress on, which you're not supposed to leave house without, I don't think. I'm not sure about that. And she attacks.
Are you a Puritan? You seem to know a lot about it.
I did study some Puritanism in school. But anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so she attacks her, and she's basically saying it's all Thomason's fault, basically declaring that Thomason is the witch.
Which is hard to believe. Well, it's hard to believe when you're like kind of looking at a literal witch in her mother right then. But that's the thing. Like, who's the witch? You know, I don't know.
And so she starts to choke Thomason out. Thomason finds a knife on the floor, and
kind of strikes her mother
in the face. Yeah, and this is where we get that really striking red.
Yeah,
because it's on her face, and then Thomason stabs her a couple more times, right?
Yeah, because then Catherine tries to strangle her, kill her.
Yeah,
and
that
she
actually, yeah,
she has to kill her mother, you know,
first,
and she has committed perhaps the final sin, which is, you know, thou shalt not kill, right? You know,
right? Is that a Puritan thing?
I have to assume the seven deadly sins are absolutely,
yeah.
You know, it's you can't kill somebody, that's a sin. So and so she has lied. She's anyway, that's the final sin.
So she kills her mom, and again, the red, and it drips onto her face, which was really cool.
She's been baptized.
Baptized in blood, baby.
Yeah, seriously though, and the very cool shot where it's a static shot from the side of Catherine, like kind of slumped over Thomason on the ground. And then the house is kind of just behind him.
Yeah,
it's just a stylistic.
it was really cool because of the red, I think. And then Thomason gets up, goes in the house,
takes her dress off,
takes her
outer dress off, and
then sits down at the table, puts her head down
with the door open.
Cut to black.
The door is left open, inviting whatever is outside in. If you're gonna look at it and interpret it like that,
fade to black.
Yeah,
give me fuel, give me fire,
give me
which I desire.
The witch, baby.
So I thought this is where the movie was gonna end.
Yeah,
I was like,
because you were like,
I was like, don't end it.
Yeah,
don't end it.
I was scared too,
and it didn't end.
Right.
Which I was like, yes. Which I almost feel like that those cut to blacks were leading up to, this last kind of. It's like relief because you get to see more of this movie, but at the same time you're like, well, what's gonna happen now?
Yeah.
And so she gets up, goes outside, and she sits down in Black Phillip's stable shed.
Well, she follows Black Phillip. Yeah, she follows Black Phillip. Black Phillip kind of beckons her into this shed. If a goat can beckon, that's what it does. And I also want to say that this was given away in the trailer. Well, earlier in the film, there's scenes of the goats literally standing on its hind legs like a man would.
It's like jumping up.
And that's like kind of a classic like sign of evil is when animals walk as men do. But or women, I'm sorry. Sick. Anyway, so yeah, and this I want to say that this final scene was given away in the trailer too when she is like taking her the shot of her in the candlelight and like she has no clothes on. That's was in the trailer too. You didn't know what was going to happen, but unfortunately I knew, I haven't seen that scene yet. There's more to come. So, a little unfortunate. She in this scene she is trying to talk to Black Phillip.
Right. And you know what?
Speaketh. I don't.
Up until now, it's still kind of
unclear.
Yeah,
if Black
this
Phillip
is real,
or
if it's just this family kind of going crazy.
And the movie takes another big leap by doing something that hasn't been in the movie yet, which is the goat. She's about to walk away, and a whisper, a very creepy, augmented, so it sounds like there's more than one voice talking, in kind of a demonic way. I forget exactly what this whispering voice says.
He says a lot of stuff.
About living deliciously.
Yeah, well, because she says, do you want something from me? And she says, what can you give me? What do you want from me? And he says, just like, I can let you. Do you want to see the world?
Do you want to see the world? Do you want to do these things?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Watch the movie, okay? But she says yes, which I don't know if it was like too easy, but maybe she was.
I feel like the whole, what I mean, the whole movie kind of led up to this, so it wasn't.
And she was, I think she was fated.
Right.
Honestly, I think that was her fate. That was her destination.
Fated, or what else does she have to do? Where else does she have to go?
And this is cool because we don't see the goat ever again. We never see. It's a point of view of this thing talking, and we don't ever see it. but slowly, as this whispering voice is talking, a figure
A man.
that is a man wearing black
And you know what?
creeps
I
around
want
her.
to see it again because I think it had like spurs on,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
boots
yeah.
with spurs,
Yeah.
which is weird because it's like,
Oh yeah, boots with spurs walk by her,
yeah,
and then it's got leather gloves and a leather coat.
which wouldn't have been a thing back then.
Well, the horsemen. I don't know if the horsemen of
Were spurs a thing?
the horsemen of
Maybe.
the apocalypse. I don't
Okay.
know. I think
Yeah.
that's not part of the Puritan lore, but I would.
It's
have
definitely
to,
interesting though.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and it puts its hand on her shoulder, and
Well, because he says,
yeah,
sign
do you
your
see
name
the
in my book.
Sign the book, and she
She
says something.
I can't write my name.
And
he
this
says,
cut is so crazy. It's such a weird cut, and it says, "I will guide you." And
Yeah.
as soon as it says that, there's a weird, like, very visceral cut in the film to
Mhm.
her, walking into the woods naked.
with Black Phillip.
Which is, if you know anything about witch lore, this is like when the girl, if you've even read The Crucible, that's like what witches did. They got naked and danced in the forest. And we have a very classic, Black Phillip leads her into the forest. The choir is slowly getting more intense. Maybe not yet. I forget what the soundtrack sounds like here, because then she gets to this bonfire. And this surprised me that this was in the movie. Where a
Yeah.
ton of, just because I didn't really expect it, were bunches of witches.
like 10,
Like
a
10
dozen,
witches are
a coven.
a coven for sure, and they're like fanatically dancing and raving around this fire. Really
Yeah.
cool, really wretched looking, and I mean, I don't think there was a way to anticipate what was going to happen, because she's kind of standing there watching them. You get a shot of Thomason's face, and then back to the whole crew of witches,
And
they
they start to rise.
to float. So cool to see that circle of witches just rise up
Yeah.
toward the sky. No brooms.
No brooms.
Curious. Actually, a
One
couple
of
of
them
them
had
had sticks.
sticks,
So,
yeah.
so maybe there weren't brooms in classic folklore. I don't know. I mean, I know you were talking about the blood being
right.
used. Anyway, and
And the last shot of the film I really liked because
yeah.
Thomason, she looks up. Yeah. She's
looks
not like
up.
totally up, but she's looking up. And the way that the light from the bonfire casts shadows on her face, it's very skeletal.
Yeah.
And then you can see she's ascending.
With a very, she's got like a maniacal,
yeah.
joyous laugh
Yeah.
that she's doing the whole time, and her hands are raised up, and she's ascending. And I think I was just a little too on edge in this scene, but to me, it almost looked like at the very end that her maniacal, joyous expression faltered a little bit, and then we get the final shot, which is kind of a weird shot of, from the ground up, her way high in the air, just floating there, and cut, and that's it.
Yeah.
Another drastic cut. I don't think that's actually happened. I think I think
she's embraced it.
I think
for
she has
sure.
embraced it. I think that was just me. Yeah. So,
That's The Witch. Good night, everybody.
Fade to black, and I take the Unforgiven. I don't think that's what he says. I don't think he takes the Unforgiven.
I don't know.
And I bake the Unforgiven. So, the only disappointment I had was that it ended up not really where I thought it was going to end up, but it didn't really shock me. I thought it was really cool
Yeah.
what happened.
I loved the first third and the third, but the second third kind of dragged a little for me.
Wait, the first, third, got it.
The first
middle
act
third.
and the third act.
And, if you're looking at these cuts to black throughout the film, like chapter breaks,
Yeah.
that's kind of cool. Could be chapter breaks. Yeah, I mean, but there's not really anything to dislike here, unless you were looking for some kind of hot...
It's a slow burn.
Yeah. If you were that's what I was going to say. If you were looking for some kind of high, fast-paced horror gore fest, this is not your film. If you're looking to get real steeped in some history, some symbolic content, some stuff that maybe might be left to interpretation, and something that's been lovingly crafted from all of those ideas.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that a lot of care was put into it.
Yeah.
Especially for a directorial debut.
Yeah, geez, really?
Yeah, first movie.
Yeah, I look forward to whatever...
Nosferatu.
Yeah, I haven't seen the first one, to be honest. I think that's I don't know if you have, but...
No, I've seen like clips of it.
Yeah, but Robert Eggers, yeah, not at all where I thought the film was going to go, but I think I was happy with
Yeah.
the way it turned out, and I want to see it again, and it's going to end up being probably a favorite of the year for me.
Okay.
A favorite
cool.
film.
Yeah, that's an ambitious statement for February.
I don't know. I just liked it. I'm
Right.
not saying it's going to be like my
It could
favorite
be your,
film.
It could be your Ex Machina of the year.
See, and I was almost like, I wasn't comparing them at all, but I was comparing the feelings that I got
right.
walking out, because, like I said, when I left Ex Machina, I knew this is like going to be one of my favorites of all time, and it made me feel so strange. This film was not like that, because I didn't walk out thinking this is going to be one of my favorites of all time, but it's going to be one that I really like for some time. You know, that
I feel like I'm gonna like it more the second time I watch it. So
I think it's just it's an example of modern horror done right. When people say there's no good horror movies being made anymore.
Yeah.
There's no horrors like a joke genre. Like, I could see this getting nominated at the Oscars for something. Not for Best Picture at all, like ever. Never in a million years. But like for some kind of
costumes were pretty good.
You know,
production design was pretty good.
But even if it doesn't, because I could also see this film never getting acknowledged by anything. I mean, like I said, we saw this film and nobody was there. Like,
yeah, we saw it at 3 p.m. on a Friday.
Yeah,
but
I guess that's not fair. But you know, yeah, I don't, and it's not the most complex film, but there's a lot of really cool themes happening underneath, especially with the wood that's being chopped up and the whole thing with the wood throughout the film. That was like, for me, what kind of made me smile when I noticed that.
Yeah,
and that's The Witch.
Yeah, no, I think that that covers my.
Any last thoughts?
Any last thoughts on The Witch? No.
Maybe we already said everything.
Yeah, I think that
I don't want to beat
covers
this one
it.
over the head. Stylistically, aesthetically, brilliant. The tone it sets is so unnerving. And that, to me, maybe that's why I liked it so much. That's what's so important to me, to have a good setting, to set a good tone, a proper tone.
Yeah, no, it definitely does.
To harbor that sense of dread throughout an entire film is hard to do, and this film nails that.
Yeah, definitely. Battery, and Justice for All, Death Magnetic, Kill 'Em All.
Hit the lights. Well, shall we hit the lights?
We should. Yeah, actually, yeah. Give me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire. All right. We'll cut that out, and then we'll throw this in. All right. Thanks for listening, guys.
I think we should cut the whole witch thing out and just leave the Metallica stuff in.
And fade to black.
And fade to black.
Yeah. So next week, we're gonna be looking at. Is it Intruders?
I think we'll do Intruders. Let me actually. I'll pull this up real quick. Do the social media plugs real quick.
Yeah.
Do the shameless promoting.
We're on Facebook at. Well, it's not at. Just search on Facebook Blood Feud Podcast. We're on Twitter at Blood Feud Pod. We're on the YouTube's Blood Feud Podcast. You can email us at bloodfeudpod@gmail.com. You can follow us now on Letterboxd. Neil Hazel, Sam Boyterry.
Yep. Yeah, Letterboxd. We talked about it last episode.
Yeah.
Really cool. Just really cool way to keep track of films, rate films, share
right.
films.
So next week is?
Yeah, we're doing Intruders next week. Well, we'll talk about it, but I'm really upset that I watched the trailer for Intruders. I watched half of it and shut it off, and I was pissed. So, but we're still going to do it. Looks interesting. And we'll be coming back at you. Let us know what you thought of The Witch.
In the meantime, just ride the lightning. And they're like, you're going to play with your fingers? And he's like, yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, this guy's nuts.